The monument erected outside Leipzig to commemorate the centenary of the Battle of Nations was dedicated yesterday. In the interior of the monument is a crypt to the honor of the heroes who fell in the fight with Napoleon. Amid uproarious cheering, the emperor reached the broad flight of steps leading to the foot of the monument. The whole concourse sang the beautiful chorale, "Now thank we all our God."
In 1913, Kaiser Wilhelm II celebrated his Silver Jubilee. Germany had not known war for 40 years and was enjoying spectacular economic growth. The Kaiser depicted his country not as an aggressor with territorial ambitions, but as the custodian of international concord.
Germany is standing guarding the peace of the earth, at the door of the temple of peace, not only of Europe, but of the whole world.
But Germany was only as old as that peace, welded just 40 years before out of 39 separate states. The Leipzig Memorial was a building block for German nationalism. It harked back to a time when German states had joined with Britain and Russia to defeat Bonaparte's France. Its monumental architecture sought to embed the nation's roots in a shared past. But the Kaiser in 1913 realized that the process of unification was not complete, and that spelt weakness.
Whereas England forms a political unit, Germany resembles a mosaic in which the individual pieces are still clearly distinguishable. This is shown by the army, which is still made up of contingents from the various German states, all wearing different uniforms. The young German Reich needs institutions which are clearly German.
Beneath one flag, Germany remained extremely diverse. Catholic South and Protestant North, rural East and industrialized West. Germany seemed ultra-conservative, but boasted a modern welfare state which inspired Britain's pre-1914 reforms.
I have been shown round one of the new labour exchanges by the Mayor of Strasbourg. I saw some of the poorest fellows in German society, but they all had an insurance card, entitling them to benefit in sickness, invalidity, infirmity and old age. There is no doubt that these labour exchanges are tremendous. The honour of introducing them into England would be in itself a rich reward.
Men would die for Britain in the First World War who did not have the vote. Perhaps half failed to meet the qualifications. But in Germany there was suffrage for all men over 21. The largest party in the Reichstag, or parliament, was socialist, and yet none of this added up to democracy. Germany's government was accountable not to her people via the Reichstag, but to her emperor. The call for political reform was growing loud, but Germany entered the First World War governed by an autocrat, and his character was as burdened by paradox as his country was.
One day the Kaiser is a soldier king, rigid, traditional. Suddenly he's the reform king, embracing the worker as a brother. Next, he is the modern king, treating the past with contempt, regarding the factory as a temple, with electricity powering all of Germany.
Kaiser Wilhelm II was Queen Victoria's oldest grandson, cousin to both Britain's George V and Tsar Nicholas II of Russia. Wilhelm was born with a withered left arm for which he compensated with sports, sailing, riding and hunting. He had an immature streak, dressing up and playing often cruel practical jokes. Wilhelm's right arm was incredibly powerful. With his rings turned inwards, he would squeeze the hands of visiting dignitaries so hard they would cry out. A king's insecurities matter little if he has no power, but the Kaiser was Germany's commander-in-chief, its supreme warlord.
In no area has the Kaiser views of his own, and he doesn't know what to do. Sadly, he's putty in the hands of clever people and makes surprising leaps of judgment all over the place. Everything he decides is motivated by his desire to be popular.
The Kaiser was most comfortable in the company of his officers. He was obsessed with uniforms and militarism. His army's ethos was rigidly professional, though even in peacetime half were conscripts. They were highly disciplined and the guardians of the German state. The French were old enemies. The last time they'd fought, in 1870, the French had used civilian snipers, franc-tireurs, against them. The German Chief of Staff's own uncle led that campaign and passed on the crucial lesson to the German soldiers of 1914.
International rules do not work when soldiers are in constant fear for their lives, worried that a civilian may pick up a rifle and shoot them. It must also be remembered that the greatest deed in war is the speedy ending of the war, and every means to that end must remain open.
German troops going into Belgium and France used terror from the start. The civilian population, caught between the weight of historic fears and current military necessities, was not going to get the benefit of any doubt. Belgian and French forces bore the brunt of the German onslaught. They were soon joined by British troops. In all, 100,000 men of the British Expeditionary Force crossed the Channel in the early weeks of the war. On the 21st of August, British troops moved into position alongside the French Fifth Army near the Belgian town of Mons, close to the French border. Two days later, the British, with 70,000 men, were hit by a German force 4 times the size.
I focused the telescope and saw a number of little grey figures. More and more were appearing. Women started to wail and rushed for home, followed by the men. While children, torn by curiosity, lagged behind, turning to see. In a few seconds, all these civilians were fleeing along the roads.
The Allies started an epic retreat south, just ahead of the German tidal wave. The war on the Western Front did not begin in the trenches. These early months were mobile, fast, dangerous. In the first 4 weeks, the German army lost over 250,000 men killed, wounded, and missing. The front was constantly shifting, giving men no time to dig in. There was nowhere to hide in fields swept by machine guns and rapid-firing artillery. British soldier Edward Dwyer won the Victoria Cross on Hill 60 in Belgium. He was just 19. He recalled the retreat from Mons on a sound recording made in 1915. He was killed a year later.
I was already in the army when the war broke out and went to France on August 13, 1914. You people over here don't realize what our boys went through in those days. That march from Mons was a nightmare. Unless you've been through it, you can't imagine what an agonizing time it was. We used to do from 20 to 25 miles a day. There was only one thing used to cheer us up on the march, that was singing. We're here because we're here, because we're here, because we're here. We're here because we're here, because we're here, because we're here.
France has just been the object of a violent and premeditated attack. She will be heroically defended by all her sons. Nothing will break their sacred union. Once again, she stands before the universe for liberty, justice, and reason. Vive la France!
At the war's start, Poincaré had appealed to all France for national unity. By the 2nd of September 1914, the Germans were just 30 miles from Paris, and the sacred union was starting to crack.